Assalamu alaikum, family, peace, healing, and light, and welcome back to another episode of Healing with Angelica's podcast, where we discuss all things healing. And if you are new to the show, welcome, beautiful souls. On today's episode, I have an amazing guest joining me today, Dr. Patrice Muhammad, as we will be discussing today's topic, the silent killer. Dr. Patrice, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm doing well. Thank Allah, God, and thank you for having me, Sister Angelica.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. All praises is due to Allah. I'm so glad to be able to have you on my show today to talk about this well-needed topic. Now, before we get started, do you mind just letting our audience know just a little bit more about you?
Oh, sure. I am a board certified physician associate and a doctor of integrative medicine of 29 years.
Oh, wow.
And I've practiced medicine in several fields of disciplines, but I guess the most important over the last 29 years is me learning how to heal naturally through natural healing modalities that return us back to nature. And so that is what I have been doing for, I would say, probably that same 29 years, but more so on a daily, consistent basis when I opened my own practice in 2019. So from that time until now, I have truly been focused on that rather than more of the the practice of medicine on the allopathic track or path.
Oh, wow. I love that. All praises are due to Allah. I definitely put more information in regarding my guest today in the description for this show. So if you guys want to know more about her, definitely look into the description. So thank you for that, Miss Patrice. Now, let's get started on today's topic, the silent killer. And please, 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 for my audience today, please do not hesitate to put any questions you may have for my guest, Dr. Patrice Muhammad, in the comment box below. So today's topic is called the silent killer. However, what is the silent killer that I am referring to? That silent killer is called stress. Now, we know that stress can wreck your emotional well being, but chronic stress works quietly behind the scenes to wreak havoc on your physical health too. Prolonged exposure to sources of stress can quite literally make you sick, and the effects on your body can be life threatening if left undressed. Now, that brings me to my first question for you, Dr. Patrice. What are some ways that stress can be defined as the silent killer?
Well, I'd also like to mention that I covered stress and the effects of toxic chronic stress on the body in my broadcast, How to Save Lives, on the Closing the Gap broadcast.
Yes, ma'am.
And I will go through stress. I'll go through the chronic stress that is really the great mimicker of many chronic medical conditions. And it manifests itself, stress or chronic stress, as a heart attack or what's called a myocardial infarction, MI. That's the medical term. Cerebral vascular accident, which is a stroke. Diabetes mellitus, coronary artery disease, autoimmune diseases such as lupus and rheumatoid arthritis and Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and many other autoimmune conditions. It can manifest itself in infertility, male or female. And even the big one that I'll be discussing next week, cancer. So those are the ways. And we say silent, and I see that you've listed it as silent. a
Mm,
silent killer. And in the medical community, they call high blood pressure the silent killer.
yes.
But I think um, stress far outweighs that hypertension as being the silent killer. Because
Mm-hmm.
as you just saw, stress gives rise to all of those conditions I just named. And hypertension, high blood pressure is in that group.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow,
So
that is a lot. And with you breaking up those names, in a sense, I would immediately put it to a source of, like you said, diabetes and heart attacks and stroke. Um,
mhm,
I would think of it as it being it caused by food or the things that you're eating. But in a way, as you're saying it, stress can induce it. Can Do you believe that
right.
when some of these different ways that stress can come about, could that also just be just stress of the mind and not food at all that can cause these stressors to happen?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Food is a foundational basis. That's just automatically pre-existing, that diet can give rise to a multitude of physiologic problems and psychological problems.
Mm.
However, there are times when, and this has been studied and witnessed, where a person has gone through a stressful situation and it had become so overwhelming that they had a heart attack or they had a stroke.
Hmm.
And some of these conditions are catastrophic events. A heart attack, which they call a massive heart attack, or a massive stroke that causes death,
Hmm.
like immediate death. So it's extremely important to know that having an overburdened mind can cause or precipitate a major life threatening event, a
Mm.
catastrophic event in the moment.
Mm. Thank you so much for that. Now, everyone have their own perspective of what stress is, and I think that is also why we cannot recognize when stress has entered into us, because we all have our different perspective of what stress is. Now, can you define what stress is in your own words?
Well, yes, I can define in my own words, but I'd rather
Hmm.
give two definitions of it.
Yes.
And the first is the formal definition of stress. Okay, the formal definition of stress, and that is a state of worry or mental tension caused by a difficult situation.
Mm.
And stress is a natural human response that prompts us to address a challenge or a threat in our lives.
Mhm.
Now, the second definition, unfortunately, I don't have the exact words, and I apologize that I was not able to locate the video of the minister, of the
Mhm.
Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, when he stated to us at for the Ministry of Health at one
Yes.
of our annual we had an annual medical conference. We're talking in the late 90s,
Oh wow.
actually. Oh, yeah, in the late 90s. He was the guest speaker at our dinner. And, and his definition of stress, and I'm paraphrasing again, I've been trying to find that for the longest, but he defined stress as when we are not functioning in the manner in which we were created, that causes stress.
Mm.
So if you're not functioning, and no matter what you're created, meaning we don't find our purpose or we're not submitting, then that in and of itself will lead to stress. And if you continue and proceed along that path, then now you have a psychological problem with stress.
Yes. Mm.
And I also want to mention that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, on his 90th birth anniversary,
Yes.
the what he shared with the world, he stated, and I was trying to find that.
Oh,
He
wow.
stated, and it's on Facebook because we had several people showing it and
Mm.
viewing it and posting it and reposting. I just could not find it with the time constraints that I have. But he said, I'm not stressed. He sat back, he was sitting back. He said,
Yes.
I'm not stressed. So why isn't he stressed? We
Mm.
need to, as he does direct us and advises us, follow my example. Why isn't he stressed? Because he's functioning within the realm of which he was created.
Ooh.
So he said, I'm not stressed. I'm sure, of
Mm-hmm.
course, there are other reasons why he isn't, but I know that is a root reason because he gave that as a reason to not be stressed,
Yes.
is when you're functioning within the purpose that you were created.
Mm-mm-mm. I bear witness to that. Like, and a lot of us are not, unfortunately, functioning in our nature. Um, and just with me coming into Islam, I completely seen a shift in my stress level and the things I give my time to. So that is definitely something important. So I thank you so much for that, Dr. Patrice. Now,
Yes.
I see here that we have a question here.
Mm.
We have Arnita Davis. She said, would you put unaddressed trauma as a silent killer under stress as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the questions that our illustrious host had submitted addresses this. And that
Yes,
question, if I may,
that's fine.
that question states, is it possible that unhealthy stress has been embedded in us since childbirth and has now been a part of our growth, development as adults?
Mm,
So, unaddressed traumas may have occurred young. I'm going to put it there, although it doesn't have to be.
hmm.
But unaddressed traumas cause an imprint on the mind. And that trauma has a paralyzing effect.
Hmm.
And if it says silent killer, yes, because if it's unaddressed, it continues to fester and grow and cause the body to go through physiologic changes and problems. So
Hmm.
now the problem that's unaddressed and continues to be unaddressed is eating away. It's eating away at you as it grows and grows and grows, and you get re-stimulated. So that
Ooh,
one time that you had that unaddressed trauma, now something else in your environment as time goes on reminds you. You're not making a mental note of it, but everything that you do and say is being recorded
yes,
in our being. And it's called the analytical mind per se.
yes.
Okay, so it's addressed, it's recorded there. So when that's recorded, there are other circumstances and situations that occur that remind you of that trauma in your environment as you move through life. And so it again, it knocks on the door of that trauma again, and it adds to and it builds on um, the I guess I want to say the horrible effect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it builds on the horrible effect that trauma has. So it's an additive effect. It enhances the problem. So eventually, yes, now we're looking at stress in the form of all those conditions. Now we have a physiological connection to that stress. So now you wonder why the blood pressure is going up. You wonder why you can't control the sugar. You wonder why you're getting an autoimmune disease, meaning your body, auto means self. So it's attacking itself, it's attacking its
Mm.
own immunity. These things are happening. And I'll give an example. I talked to a person, I often consult with people, and she said she didn't think she had any stress. She said, "Oh, maybe I do, but I mean, now who who alive doesn't think that they have something that
Yeah.
could be kind of wearing on them a little bit?"
Mm-hmm.
Yes, some of us may be less affected by it because if you're doing some of the things that I'm going to go into to help with the coping mechanisms of stress, then okay, maybe you don't. But in further conversation, that's not the case. So, but the blood pressure is high. The blood pressure is high. So you can have high blood pressure and say you don't have some chronic measure of stress that's affecting you,
Mm.
because high blood pressure is not in a person who is balanced, not in a person who doesn't have chronic stressor
Mm-hmm.
and unaddressed trauma. You don't have high blood pressure. So I'll just say that when you have an unaddressed trauma, as Ms. Davis is asking about, that is a silent killer, because it's um, it's wearing away at the inner peace that your body is supposed to have, your body and mind is supposed to have. and
Mm-hmm.
and we'll go through a few of the ways that you can address un, un, so that we can address unaddressed traumas.
Yes, yes, definitely, definitely. Thank you so much for that. And I'm so glad that it tied into the question that I
Yeah.
had for you as well. So all praises are due to Allah. And just real quick, you know, um, I'm not for sure. Have you done Dianetics? I'm pretty sure you have.
I'm, I'm an auditor. I'm a
Otter, oh,
Dianetic auditor. Yes.
yes, yes. Praise be to Allah. OMG. When I say that not not addressing past traumas is really critical. I can bear witness to
Absolutely.
it only because, and I'm going to say this real quick. I talked about this in my previous episodes before. Um, Back in 2016, I had lost a child, and
Sorry.
as what years went by, I never addressed the situation, never addressed it. I didn't deal with it correctly. Didn't go to counseling. Didn't I just kept it in. Prior years later, I end up having another child, and with me not addressing the pain that I went through in my previous pregnancy after losing a child, I went through so much anxiety and fear and depression just within that pregnancy because I was so scared something was gonna happen, and that the last pregnancy that I had. So the fear that I was going through throughout that pregnancy with my son now was based off trauma that I didn't even address from me losing a child prior. And it ended up turning into, I want to say a lot of that turned into me having a thyroid condition
Mm-hmm.
after having my son. So I ended up connecting with Dr. Akilu Muhammad. And like I stated before in previous shows, I went ahead and I took the route of how to eat to live, and also looked into Dianetics, talking about that trauma. And when I say Dianetics was so helpful for me to be able to release that incident that had happened in the past. So I definitely, truly would say getting those issues resolved and worked
Yes.
on
Yes.
is very important. So I'm so glad you brought that up. All praises due to Allah. And I am looking into being an auditor too. I just love
Yes.
Dianetics. So yes.
Yes. Yes.
Praise be to
Absolutely.
Allah. Yes,
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 ma'am.
yes. So my next question is all stress bad stress? And is it okay to have some stress?
All stress is not bad stress. And yes, it is okay to have some stress, especially, and again, I covered this on a previous broadcast of mine. And stress can be it helps to boost brain power.
Mm-hmm.
It helps to increase immunity in the short term. It helps to motivate you to succeed. That's very important. And it can
Yes.
make you more resilient. So, in the previous broadcast, I talked about the stress of having a promotion, you know, but not getting that promotion until you prove yourself proficient enough to take on the promotion.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you have to present something to your to the upper management for your promotion, and you're just you're a shoe in for the promotion.
Mm-hmm.
However, you have to make a presentation. So that causes you in the short term to, that motivates you. That increases your brain power. It makes you more resilient. So, yes, when you have that type of stress, the stress of getting married, the stress of graduation, those major life events that produce good results, but
Mm-hmm.
it's still a little stressful to prepare for those events, although they're good events. So, yes, there is some stress that comes with, uh, again, those things I just named: boosting brain power, increasing immunity, making you more resilient, all of those
Mm-hmm.
things. That's the that's the good side of having stress. And if you didn't have something to help motivate you, to push you, then that wouldn't make us productive. We wouldn't be seeking to improve ourselves. That little
Yes.
stress causes us to improve, want to improve,
Mm-hmm.
to do what we need to do in order to improve and to succeed and to have some measure of success. Some measure of success. So, yes, not all stress is bad.
Yes, yes, yes. I love it. All praise is due to a lot. Honestly, every time I get on a show and do a podcast, I have a little bit of stress all the
Yes.
time, a little bit of nervousness because I'm like, I hope I don't mess up. Who's
Yes.
looking at me?
Yeah.
So,
Right.
yes, all praise is due to a lot. And typically, and we're about to get to the coping mechanisms of stress. Most of the time, I try to calm myself down
Yes.
just to be able to get myself together. So yes,
Absolutely.
praise be to Allah. And
Absolutely.
yes, and if you all are enjoying this episode just as well as I am, please show your support by donating today to Cash App $ Healing with Angelica to help sustain future episodes just like this. I would also like to leave more information to donate on the screen below. I love you all. Now let's get back to today's well needed topic: the silent killer with Dr. Patrice Muhammad. So, my next question is yeah, do you mind sharing some coping mechanisms that one can use to balance stress?
Yes. And due to our time constraints, I
Mm-hmm.
do want to offer those coping mechanisms,
Okay.
those therapeutic mechanisms, but I want to also cause, um, give the information for them to go to the last broadcast that I did.
Yes,
It
ma'am.
goes into quite some detail. So I'll start with the number one stress relieving mechanism that I recommend is meditation, which includes prayer,
Mm.
because prayer is a form, or the most powerful form, I should say, of meditation. Meditation, prayer, number one, number one, number one. Okay. Color therapy. I went into color therapy called chromotherapy. And that's a form of therapy that uses color and light to treat certain mental and physical conditions. It's very effective. And before I go any further, I want to make sure that I share Reiki, because
Yes.
at the last broadcast, one of the viewers, who obviously was very well informed and in tune with natural healing
Hmm.
mechanisms. And so he was kind of sharing a little bit throughout the broadcast. So I said, okay, he's aware of, holistic alternative therapies. And so I want to make sure that I list that
Yes, ma'am.
Reiki. And some people may not know, what Reiki is. And sometimes I give like a little homework assignment. But Reiki deals with energy. It deals with healing energy.
Mm.
Okay. And so I want people to kind of seek out something, kind of get the brain used to discovery of new things that can be beneficial and life saving.
Yes.
So, so I want to share that Reiki.
Yes. I love Reiki. So
Uh-huh.
yes.
Oh, okay. Well, very good.
Yes,
Very
yes,
good.
yes. I love Reiki. It's beautiful. Beautiful tool, beautiful technique. It's definitely good to manage stress.
It
Yes.
is. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
Acupuncture, acupressure, they help with stress. Acoustic wave therapy, because most people have heard of acupuncture and acupressure, but I was sharing on the broadcast some of the uncommon, initially thought of ways to relieve stress, which
Hmm.
are more effective than some of the allopathic recommendations of stress. Okay.
Hmm.
So, acoustic wave therapy, and an acoustic wave therapy, that's a mechanical stimulation that encourages natural healing processes in the body through sound waves. So the
Oh,
sound
wow.
waves, they inspire natural safe reactions within the tissues that helps to return the tissue to its optimal and homeostatic state. So sound waves can do that. Music therapy, and that's, of course, a therapeutic approach that uses the naturally mood lifting therapies of music to help people improve their mental and overall well being. And I gave an example of a song. Just think of a song that when you hear it, oh my goodness, it brings you back to
Hmm.
a place. Oh wow! Oh, I remember that. And so you're in tune with it, and it lifts your
Yes.
mood for that moment. Well, what if you use that as an actual therapy to bring stress down? Sat for 15 minutes and had a playlist of all of the music that helps to inspire good feelings,
Mm.
good mood, improved mood. Very
Yes.
effective. Very effective. Okay. And so we have, and there's a difference between sound therapy and acoustic wave therapy.
Hmm.
And I put that in the uh, in the video, or in the information that I have on the broadcast.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So next would be, and with the sound and acoustic wave, a crystal bowl. So I want people to be aware of that. And that's part of that sound therapy, the crystal bowls. Are you familiar with the crystal bowls, Sister Angelica?
No, I'm
Okay,
not.
okay,
Now I
okay,
want to.
okay, all right. So that's something, and it's very simple. These are
Mhm.
simple, easy stress relieving techniques. Guided imagery. Now
Oh,
that is what I wanted to share with with Miss Davis, who asked about the unaddressed trauma.
mm.
So guided imagery. First of all, I would recommend Dianetics. That's first and foremost,
Yes.
because it's so, unfortunately, Scientology or Dianetics is demonized. But of course, we're used to that because we know what they do with Islam. So
Mm-hmm.
that's that's not of any consequence to us. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan recommended that. He doesn't recommend anything on a superficial level.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's something to that. And so when you are talking about unaddressed trauma, Dianetics is number one. On
Yes.
my no, I'm sorry. I got to go to two. Number one is prayer to God.
Ooh,
Number one is prayer. Number one is
can't
prayer.
leave that
Always.
out.
No,
Yes.
that's number one. And then the technology of Dianetics is extremely helpful and effective. So I
Mm.
want to make sure that I impress upon that point. And within Dianetics, there's, well, I would say after Dianetics is guided imagery, because Dianetics, it actually causes a person to go back and recant um, the circumstances of a trauma, of or of a situation of pain. And guided imagery takes you back. It's a relaxation technique, and it works on the premise that the mind and body are connected, which they are. And you actually will go back and you will visualize. It takes you to a visualization of a circumstance or situation,
Mm-hmm.
as well as it causes you to visualize proper functioning cells from an abnormally functioning cell. So it has purposes that can change physiology as well as psychology. Okay. So very, very important there. Guided imagery, and that's very big with cancer. I'll be speaking about that more as I go into the broadcast on cancer, but guided imagery, very important for
Yes.
trauma,
Mm-hmm.
very important to have uh, a reflection or introspection of things. Aromatherapy. Aromatherapy is the use of aromatic plant extracts or essential oils to reduce stress and tension. So, you have a smell good, you put a little smell good in a diffuser, and
Yes.
especially lavender and the citrus smells, and those things. Oh my goodness, it helps tremendously to
Absolutely.
alleviate stress, a stressful day. Very important. And some of those are eucalyptus, the citrus oils, peppermint and rose oil, lavender,
Mm.
as I mentioned. So very good. Okay, yoga therapy. Most people know about yoga. Yoga is extremely stress relieving. Very important, extremely stress relieving. Massage therapy is very good. There are 10 major benefits of massage, and number one on the list is it reduces stress.
Mm.
Number one on the list.
Yes.
Okay. And then having proper, I'll go into the physiologic a little bit, and that's the calcium magnesium
Mm.
balance, because the calcium magnesium balance is needed for proper functioning of the heart, brain, kidneys, and helps to develop and maintain, of course, strong bones and teeth. But when you're stressed, that diminishes the absorption of both calcium and magnesium. And magnesium is needed to help absorb calcium. Okay, so if you're stressed, then those are two macro minerals, major minerals that are needed, that go imbalanced when you're stressed.
Yes.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
so that's very important. And then I'll just share a few of the traditional stress relievers through exercise, because exercise is a form of stress, is a stress relieving technique to have exercise, because with exercise you release the good endorphins, the well-being endorphins from the
Mm-hmm.
brain. Okay, and so of course those are walking, jogging, running, weight training, aerobics, Zumba, Pilates, and etc. Okay, so those are just those are just some. Of course, not all. That list is not comprehensive, as as I've said it even in the previous broadcast. The list is not comprehensive, but
Yes.
you have a very, very good start. And if you were to do half of those, oh my goodness, you would be a more well-rounded, stress-free person.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Like I said, I can bear witness to that. Meditation, aromatherapy, exercising, Reiki. It's so many different things that you list as coping mechanisms. I love it so much. Our praise is due to a lot. Now I see we have a question on here. I know we only have probably like 15 more minutes.
Mhm.
I'm going to let my guests, not my guests, my audience go ahead and get their questions in.
Mhm.
And I also have another question that also ties into coping mechanisms. So
Mhm.
I have a audience. I said audience. Salima. I hope I said that right. Excuse me. Yes, ma'am. Dear sister, how effective do you think Dianetics would be on someone who suffered from schizoaffective or schizophrenia? Taking them back to the incident of the trauma is already what they do.
Okay. I believe Dianetics could be potentially very effective
Yes.
because Dianetics teaches you not only to for the auditing. There are other processes that can be done, or processing techniques that can be done outside of running what they call running an engram.
Mm.
And so there is an ARC, affinity, reality, and communication. Those those aspects are very important also to help unburden the mind. So a person with schizoaffective and schizophrenia, there is an imbalance there. Now that imbalance came from somewhere. Where was the trauma?
Mm-hmm.
There was an overwhelming aspect in their life that caused them to become mentally imbalanced. Well, if we could, along the way, it's not a quick fix, but along the way, if we can have consistent processing, that person can absolutely help overcome schizoaffective or schizophrenia, because that person is really said to be in somebody else's valence. They're
Mm.
actually that may be a source of that person's schizoaffective or schizophrenia. They may be in
Mm-hmm.
somebody else's valence, which is a parent who was schizophrenic or had some mental imbalance, and they live with the parent. And so that, due to what they have something called contagion of aberration. Um, so no, aberration of contagion. So you actually develop the aberration because you're in close proximity, close environment to the person who has that issue. So
Mm.
again, a parent, a sister, a brother, someone that you're in close proximity with. Okay, that's very important. So it's contagion of aberration.
Oh wow, that's a beautiful answer. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Patrice. Our praises be to
All
Allah.
praise is due to Allah.
Yes, ma'am. So due to time, I will get to
Mhm.
my last question here.
Sure.
Now, what advice can you give to a person who has tried to use all healthy coping mechanisms, but is still dealing with chronic stress?
Okay, well, there's something that's still left.
Mm.
And sometimes you may need guidance from someone. Yes, you should try to do some of these most simple coping mechanisms on your own. However, each aspect or each mechanism that I gave can actually become a little bit more detailed. We can go further into that. And there is a practitioner who actually can perform all of those things I just named.
Mm-hmm.
I just rather direct people to try some of the simple mechanisms on their own, because if they become diligent and do those things, they may actually be very successful in lowering the blood pressure,
Mm-hmm.
lowering the blood sugar, and helping to maintain, a sense of health and well-being on their own. However, all of those aspects that I named, an actual practitioner can take you more deeply into those coping mechanisms or stress relieving techniques. So I would recommend the person to seek out someone who is knowledgeable as a practitioner to actually take them further into it, because all of those techniques that I named, they definitely are effective, have been well studied, well tried among people. So it's effective. So that person may just need another aspect of things, and they may also need the physiologic component. I just talked about just two things, just two, the calcium, magnesium. What about
Yes.
other deficiencies that they have? So they may actually have another physiologic component that we need to address that will help alleviate the stress.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, all praise are due to Allah. Thank you so much for that question, for that answer.
Yes,
Um,
ma'am.
because I know that everyone is not the same. Everyone, we all deal with stress, but it all depends on how each one of us deal with it on our own. How do
Yes.
we respond to different stress in our life?
Right.
So if none of those coping mechanisms isn't working, I, I I'm pretty sure they'll work. Some of them will.
Yes.
However, if not, always seek more guidance.
Yes.
Therapy, Dianetics. There we go, right
Yes.
there.
Yes.
Like I said, our first is prayer. Your connection to Source, Allah, God. Connect back with God, and look
Mm-hmm.
into counseling, Dianetics, auditing.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, Dr. Patrice, for joining me
Welcome.
today to discuss this well-needed topic, the silent killer. I would also like to thank my amazing audience and Healing Tribe for joining us today. I pray this episode was informative and valuable in healing to you all. Also, be sure to share, like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes on any of your favorite podcast station. Closing the Gap Broadcast Network on Facebook and YouTube. Oh yeah, on Facebook and YouTube, and Healing with Angelica's podcast on Facebook and YouTube to help get the message out to those in need of healing. And also, if you are ready to start your healing journey, I am offering a 90-minute consultation call that includes a copy of my ebook, Heal Yourself for Free. More information will be in today's show notes, including information for today's amazing guest, my beloved sister, Dr. Patrice Muhammad. Also, she has now joined the Closing the Gap Broadcast Network. So our praises due to Allah. I'm so glad to have my sister on with me. Now I don't know if you're on every Thursday, but do you mind giving us, the
Sure.
audience, more information of your
Sure.
broadcast? Because she has a broadcast now, so y'all want to know
Sure.
more.
Sure.
Yes.
It's sure, thank you. It's every first and third Thursday of the
Okay.
month. I'm working my way to being a weekly broadcast like you, Sister Angelica. My schedule didn't permit me to make the change as quickly as I wanted to make the change, because I was offered this opportunity. Like I was like, wow. So when the
Yes.
opportunity came, when opportunity knocks, you take it. So
Yes,
that
ma'am.
this was a wonderful opportunity. And so I did the best I could. So anyway, it's every first and third Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time.
Yes, yes, yes. All praises are due to Allah. She also, like she stated earlier, a lot of she goes into more details about what we're discussing on her previous episodes that she had. I think you have two right now.
Yes, I
Yes,
three.
because you
Well, I
have.
have two of my own, right? And the initial one was
Mm-hmm.
also I would have people to view because it went into a lot of the background, and
Okay.
I think it'll lay a really good base. And that was April the 29th.
Okay, okay, great, great. All praises be to Allah. So
Yes, ma'am.
yes, 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 yes. Check her out on Closing the Gap Broadcast Network. If you guys want to get more information just on this topic, the silent killer, and we are centering around stress.
Mhm.
So yes, yes, Dr. Patrice. Before we end today's show, do you have any closing remarks for our audience today?
The only closing remarks that I have is continue to seek information and knowledge and act upon the information and knowledge that you seek, because it doesn't benefit you to gain the information and knowledge and you don't put it to practice, you don't put it
Mm,
to use. And I think that's where we kind of fall short. We get so much information, but what's the importance of gathering information and you don't use it, especially for the
absolutely.
benefit of yourself, your family, your community, and your nation?
Hmm. Absolutely. Wow. All praise is due to Allah. And it's funny you just said that. I actually just listened to a lecture by Dr. Ava Muhammad, and
Wow.
she spoke about us, you know, we getting, she said, we're getting, I'm not saying this verbatim, but she said, we're getting the teachings, but we're not learning it. We're not
Right.
putting it into play,
Right.
so it's definitely, definitely important. We can acquire all the knowledge and listen, but what are we doing to actually put it into play and put it into work so it can be effective on us? So all praises are due to
Yes,
Allah.
ma'am.
Thank you again, Dr. Patrice
Thank
Muhammad,
you.
for joining me. Thank you so much for my amazing audience and Healing Tribe for joining us today. And we leave you all as we came. Assalamu alaikum. Peace, healing, and light.
Alaikum salam.